welcome to Razz Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing Life, also known as not an alien movie. I mean, it's really hard to differentiate all of these sci-fi horror films from the Alien franchise because the Alien franchise is just that effective and that huge. Honestly, I wasn't gonna watch this film, however, I got a request to review it, so I went and saw it. Finally, someone asked me to review something. So I went and I saw it, and here we are. And honestly, I found Life to be a pretty enjoyable film, even though it's not really that groundbreaking. But I found it to be a fun, nice little sci-fi horror flick. So the story follows a group of astronauts on the International Space Station, played by recognizable and attractive actors, who are tasked with studying a soil sample from Mars that actually contains a living organism. However, this living organism is not as harmless as it seems, and thus we have our movie. So let's start by talking about the top 3 things that I liked about Life. Number 3. The visuals. This movie looked gorgeous. I really enjoyed the camera work. I thought that the visuals were really impressive, and I was a big fan of the cinematography. The film was shot really well, and it has these impressive sequences where the camera just moves around the space station in what looks like one-take shots, and it gives you kind of an idea of the geography of the place, and it also gives you the feeling of you being in space, bouncing around in this area. And I thought that was really nice and very effective. However, when the tension was really high, the camera work switched into very intimate and claustrophobic shots, and that also worked a lot for these scenes. It made it feel tense and it made it feel suffocating, and I thought that was really good too. The CGI is also very impressive in this movie. I really liked the special effects. Everything looked real and believable, and a lot of times the actual special effects felt invisible. And this is how you know that the special effects are really good, is when they're not noticeable, and the CGI is not really noticeable in this movie. You can't really tell what's real and what's not. I really like the production design of the spaceship, and I really like the design of the creature as well. So all in all, I thought the visuals were very impressive. The number 2 thing I liked about Life was the performances. This film is blessed with an amazing cast. All the actors are really good. There wasn't a single actor whose performance I didn't buy. I really liked all the characters, and I enjoyed watching everybody on screen. Of course, when you have someone like Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal, you expect good performances, and you get what you expect here in this movie. However, a definite standout for me was Rebecca Ferguson, who I don't really know that well, and I thought she really shined in this film, and she did a great job, and I thought she had a lot of emotional range, which was really good and really sold me on the tense and highly emotional moments. Another standout performance came from the guy who was in a wheelchair, whose name I definitely cannot pronounce. I'm gonna have to pronounce it, aren't I? Arion Bakare. Arion Bakare. The actress who played the commander also did a great job. I enjoyed her performance. Olga Stolichnaya. I don't know why they're all turning into drinks. So I might as well mention Hiroyuki Sanada, a great Japanese actor. Honestly, I feel that the performances carried the film a little bit, and they were more impressive than the actual script or storyline. I don't think this film would be as big and as popular as it is if it wasn't starring these actors. The number 1 thing I liked about Life was the setup. So traditionally, stories have a setup, a conflict, and a resolution or a payoff. And in this film, the setup was really good. Starting from the first scene, which I thought was really incredible and really nicely shot and directed, and from setting up the characters and the actual story. One of the cool things about it is that it's very grounded. It really feels realistic, even though it's kind of a fantasy sci-fi film. Once you're in there in the space station with these characters, you feel like you're actually there, and you really believe it and believe their relationships and their situation. And the characters themselves were set up in a very interesting way. Every single one of them had a particular tick or a particular element about who they are that made them interesting, and also you saw this really cool dynamic and relationships happening between them, which made them also very engaging. So the characters were cool, the story was interesting, and the setup felt realistic, which raised the stakes for what was about to come. But for me, this film started really high and then kind of dipped down in quality towards the end. So let's talk about what went wrong and the top 3 things I didn't like about Life. Number 3, character underdevelopment. So like I said, they set up these characters and they were really interesting. However, they didn't really develop them well throughout the film. They kind of abandoned the layers and the character elements that they introduced in the beginning to follow a more horror, sci-fi style of storytelling. So it became more about the danger and about the chase and about the survival than it was about the actual people. And I like that because I felt these characters had a lot of potential to be very memorable. However, we never explored the things that were set up about them. So that's why I felt like it dipped down in quality, and the characters just kind of became typical people who are in danger trying to survive a bad situation, rather than us actually connecting with them and rooting for them a little bit more. This especially hurt Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who I thought was really interesting in the beginning. He's a guy who has been there for a record-breaking time. He doesn't want to go back to Earth because he doesn't like Earth and doesn't like people and feels like he belongs in space. And that's a really interesting character to have. However, from the middle of the film onwards, we really abandoned that and he just became one of the people running around trying to survive. The number 2 thing I didn't like about Life was lack of originality. This movie was cool and a lot of fun, however, it definitely was predictable, at least to me. Life really falls victim to most of the horror sci-fi tropes. Things happen when you expect them to. I also didn't feel like the film added anything new. It didn't break any grounds in terms of story or plot. It followed the typical kind of steps you would expect from a film like this. And the ending was pretty meh. And when you're operating under the shadow of the Alien franchise and films like that, you kind of want to do something different so you can step away from it and shine and be a little bit more memorable. However, Life did not really take that chance. It played it safe. So at the end of the day, I felt it was pretty predictable and not very original. I wish it was a little bit more unique than that. The number one thing I didn't like about Life is the payoff. Again, you have a setup, conflict, and a payoff. The setup was really good, the conflict was pretty fun even though it was a little predictable, and the payoff was really not that exciting. I didn't feel like it really achieved what it set out to do as a film. It started out by asking all of these existential questions, and it had all these philosophical ideas that I thought were really interesting. Then from halfway through the film towards the end, it abandons all these ideas and it becomes more horror than sci-fi, which made me feel like the film became less heavy and a lot more shallow as it went on, which is the thing that really got in the way of this film being great and made it just good. It's like, imagine if you set up this fancy, beautiful dinner table full of very expensive silverware and nice centerpieces, and then you come with a bag of chips, you open it and you serve it on the table. So all in all, I had a fun experience watching this movie. I really liked the tension, I liked the action sequences, I liked how the film looked, and I liked the performances. However, I felt a little let down by the story, but all in all, it was a pretty enjoyable film, and I'm gonna give it a 7.5. So, have you seen Life? Did you enjoy it? Were you able to not compare it to Alien? Let me know in the comment section, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to ask me for anything you'd like me to review for you next. See ya!